Good evening and welcome to Hoosier Tailgate here, right here on the Hoosier.com. Welcome back. Season 4 kicking off tonight. Took a little time off, and of course, if you've been following me on a daily basis, I've been setting in for Mr. Jim Coyle on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and it's been a whirlwind of 3 weeks when you think that all is going on there and then trying to get stuff prepared for this evening. But hey, it's time to roll as we get ready to kick off season 4 here in a short bit. But whether you've been with us since the very first episode back a few years ago, or just joining us for the first time tonight, again, your support means a lot to me as well as those at the Hoosier.com. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Give it that notification bell. Hit that as well so you can be notified when we are going to go live. We've been predominantly on a Thursday night thus far, and we'll get ready here to expand to 2 nights a week, Tuesdays as well, when we get going here. But tonight, wanted to get things kicked off right and get things started well, as over the next 4 weeks, we're going to launch our 2026 Indiana football schedule preview series, and we're going to break down every opponent on the schedule, not in great detail, but doing it with the idea of who are the head coaches, the coordinators, because those do change year to year. And tonight we kick it off with our non-conference schedule, the first 3 games of the Hoosier schedule. We'll talk about that tonight. And again, get an idea of the teams that will be coming in to Memorial Stadium here the first 3 weeks of the season. So it's going to be important to talk about them, to be aware of them. And again, regardless of where you think Indiana stacks up against an opponent, it still requires a game day effort between the white lines that make the ultimate difference in whether or not a team wins or loses. And that's one thing that this Indiana team has done very well. No matter who they've played, they've always been on point. And it's always about the preparation, execution, all those things that make up what goes into the final score on every Saturdays in the fall. When we look at the first 3 games, we're talking North Texas, new football coach, Howard University, new head football coach. Western Kentucky is the most veteran staff of the 3 in the non-conference era. Neil Brown takes over at North Texas. That name sounds familiar. He was at West Virginia. He spent last year out of football after he was let go from West Virginia. He was more of an offensive analysis, and I think he was with Baylor, if I'm not mistaken. But at anyway, with Coach Brown, he's a very successful coach, and he's a very good offensive-minded coach. So that in itself will be a great test. Now, the thing with North Texas, when we get there, they lost their whole coaching staff, who are now at Oklahoma State. And when we get to Howard, it's an alum coming back to take over the reins there. And we'll get to Western Kentucky here in a few moments. As anything on paper, many of the people will say that Indiana should start a 3-0 very easily. But as you know, games are not won on the paper. Every one of those opponents presents a unique challenge, and each of us tells us something about where this Indiana team stands at that point in time and gives you an idea of what they do well, what they need to work on, and how that may or may not impact their season. Before we get there, we want to discuss some of the biggest stories around college football tonight as we head into this 2026 season. And again, when you think about recruiting, Indiana's recruiting has gone well. And tonight we are on Monchon Sales watch as the 5-star commitment from Lawrence North will make his announcement tomorrow at noon on the Pat McAfee show. And I'm sure there will be a lot of television sets tuned in to Pat McAfee tomorrow to get the lowdown on what Monshawn Sales decides to do as it pertains to a choice for his college years. As we know, Texas has made a late push with a very big offer to him. One that, again, I do think Indiana has set well with this one. Whether or not they're the top of the food chain when it comes to the dollars and cents, it may or may not matter in that case. So again, we'll be watching to see what happens there. And it's going to be a very, very, I guess you could say, exciting time 24 hours from now to determine whether or not Indiana lands one of the top players in the country, as well as a 5-star that ultimately could be a big factor in 2027. But as I say always, a star by one's name means very little. What matters the most is how they compete when they get here. And also remember, but just because somebody says tomorrow that they're coming to school A, B, or C, that does not end the recruitment. Because as we know, December, when all the things are finally on pen and paper in the early signing period, that is when you can relax. But until that point, they're still going to have to recruit every single kid on their roster that they've got commitments from now until that point in time. Now, does that mean it changes? Maybe, maybe not. But with a kid like him, I guarantee you tomorrow will not end his recruitment. That's for sure. Also, one thing I forgot to point out, by all means, we love to have you not compete, my goodness, partake in the show tonight. If you got a question, by all means, drop it into the chat box as much as I can. I'll try to read some of them as well, but appreciate you all joining us here this evening, and those that maybe have joined Indiana Sports Beat Radio through the last 3 weeks. And really appreciate that. Tim, appreciate your comments there as well. Again, always try to do my best, but you, as a former head coach in college, then assistant coach in college football, whether it's college or high school, it always has a near and dear aspect to my heart, because it's the game I fell in love with as a kid and our family fell in love with, as my father was a head high school coach for a number of years in the state of Indiana, and actually started the football program at Snyder High School here in the Fort Wayne area back in the 1960s. And just for those that may be in this area, Snyder High School will open their new stadium the second week of the season against East Noble on their campus for the first time ever. They have never played a high school football game on their actual campus, so that'll be unique in itself as well. But heading back to the recruiting game aspect of it, again, Indiana has done all they can do as it pertains to recruitment of Monshawn Sales. And I like where Indiana's positioned. Davion Chandler, former teammate, Omar Cooper, Lawrence North graduate, first-round draft pick, all those things show that he can obtain what he wants to obtain here at Indiana. And the fact that Indiana won the national championship a year ago, that as well helps them as well. Todd, appreciate you switching over because of listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. So appreciate that as well. We'll be back tomorrow as well with that. So by all means, plan on joining us tomorrow for our Friday edition. But that was a big, big aspect of this recruitment, and the fact that it's going to be on Pat McAfee and the connection that Pat has with Coach Signetti. You got to feel that it's going to be a good day one way or the other, because Indiana's brand continues to rise, not just here in the state, but all throughout the country with that. The other thing to point out, and just real quickly here, Fernando Mendoza took home the ESPY Award last night for Best College Football Player at the ESPYs, and that capped a great career for him, having won the Heisman Trophy, Big Ten Championship, National Championship, and then being recognized at the ESPYs. And again, another thing that promotes the brand of Indiana, which means a lot when it comes to recruiting these high-profile kids. On the next one there, if you haven't heard, the 5-for-5 eligibility rule will go into effect. What does that mean? There's no more redshirting or medical redshirting as of now. It's you get 5 years to play 5, and it starts upon entrance into college or when you turn 19. So again, there may be some players on Indiana's roster right now that may find out they have an extra year of eligibility. For instance, Josh Hoover. He thought he only had one, but I do believe he has another year of eligibility after this year. So again, it could be a great positive in that respect. And from going forward, you no longer have to worry about playing a kid and then after 4 games making a decision whether you need to redshirt them or blow the red shirt. They can continue to play them no matter what. And I love that aspect of it because it keeps kids engaged. And that's the one thing that coaches are adamantly trying to do when a kid is not factoring in the lineup somehow, some way, is finding ways to engage them. And especially now, they can do it in many different ways. Look at special teams. There may be some kids that are ready to step into a special teams role. And if that's an opportunity for them, by all means, let's get them out there and start playing them. So that rule has a benefit on each side of the coin. We do know that it was a group of basketball players did sue the NCAA over that because they entered in 2022, and they some way were going to be left out of that 5-for-5, and we're not grandfathered in, but they won their injunction. So from a winter sport / spring sport benefits those kids that entered college in 2022 potentially. As far as football, it will have no bearing moving forward unless something happens where the rule is dropped and they go back to the old rule. But I doubt that. I really doubt that in that respect. When you talk about NIL, and I call it the NIL recruiting inflation, and what is that? An article came out on On3 today where kids are becoming one thing when they go visit an institution as let's say for a 3-star, they go there, that institution has made an offer and an inducement in terms of dollars and cents, and they have an agreed upon amount for that individual. But when they come out of that visit and maybe they all of a sudden find out that in a week or two, a reevaluation of his skills is done, and he all of a sudden jumps to a 4-star. Well, now that agent and kid are wanting to renegotiate where they stand with the dollars and cents of it. And it's causing some problems because when you think about it, everybody can only spend so much, and they've got certain values for certain levels. It's going to be a interesting dynamic when it comes to that aspect of things. When you talk about a kid that's rated a 3-star by 247 or Rivals or whoever that may be, and then those entities change him from a 3 to a 4, and they're wanting to renegotiate. Now, we've seen some kids decommit, and my belief is that exactly for that reason, in some respects, that they went there with one rating, they got bumped up, wanted to renegotiate their numbers, and those institutions say, hey, look, we can't, we're locked into where we're at and what we've got for you. And they said, okay, I'm going to open it back up to see what value I have. So that is a story to keep an eye on, because that, I think, will be something that these coaches as well as these services are going to have to do something to lock in a player's star rating and not jack with it too much because of the problems it does cause in that respect. So that's another one to keep a close eye on with that. But again, stay tuned. We'll have you all up to date with that. Robert, thank you so much. I appreciate your birthday wishes, and those that knew this morning, my birthday's today, and I can't think of anything else I'd rather do than be sitting here talking to each and every one of you on my 59th birthday, except for that aspect that I'm staring at 60 right down the road. But again, appreciate you all joining us here tonight, and thank you for those birthday wishes. But again, countdown to camp is on. We got Big Ten Media Days coming up here on July the 30th is when Indiana is on the clock in Chicago. You can bet the Hoosier.com will have you covered A to Z. I will not be on site there, but again, I will be keeping everybody updated as much as possible on that specific day, and we'll have some recaps of that. But again, the Hoosier.com, Alec Lastly, Colin McMahon, both will have you well situated to follow there in Chicago. But again, that's coming up, and then camp starts. I believe that it's either the 4th or 5th, somewhere around that date, when they're in reporting and they're off and running. So we're 2 weeks away from Big Ten Media Days, about 3 from the start of the 2026 season. And again, we're rocking and rolling as we go along here tonight. Also tonight, we're going to talk a little bit in the Coach Griff's film room. We're going to take a look at one of Indiana's probably most effective plays a year ago, one that they sometimes couple with the RPO, and that is the inside zone play. They have a very good efficiency a year ago with that run play. And what do I mean by efficiency? They would average 4 or more yards with that play and utilize it on normal downs. In other words, they were lining up 2nd and 6 after a 1st and 10 play with inside zone, and potentially 3rd and 2 if they ran it again. Now, they coupled it with a lot of the inside with a RPO game, and that is a way to protect the play, and they did well with that aspect of things, and I still think it will be something they will continue to do. But we'll take a look at one of their good running plays from last year and what I believe they will continue to do with their offense. We'll also look at some other ones, such as the power counter game that they ran a little bit more last year, which I was happy to see because I don't think they ran it enough 2 years ago. And now that they did plenty of that again, we'll talk about that in another week or so with that when we talk about concepts that worked well. Also, with that efficiency play, sometimes fans think it's the best play is the one that you have all the motion and what is the biggest trick play and so forth and so on. Coaches want to know which play I can go hang my hat on. When I need to get 4 or 5 yards, what is that play? For me, when I coached, it was power. That was the one that I was going to make sure that our kids knew when it came down to it and we needed to get the hard yardage or 5 yards, they knew what was coming with the the power run game. On top of that, coupled with the RPO, it gave us the best 2 type of plays with that. So again, with Indiana, that was the foundation this year, and Indiana had 2,000-yard rushers, and Kaelon Black was probably the best at running it. We'll have to see how Kobe Martin runs it as well as Turbo and BB Jr. in hopes that he's back to full strength heading into this thing this year. Also, when you look at all this aspect to what we're talking about tonight, again, Indiana's schedule has been evaluated already. If you want to go to ESPN, they do have FPI ratings out of Indiana, and that's kind of a combination of where they're at, what their schedule strength is versus a lot of different factors. You can go look at that, and that's called the FPI. There's also one there that I like that's called the productivity probability, which means how productive you are, either offense and defense, with returning players in your camp. And Indiana's about in the middle of the pack with that. So that's another one to get a look at because you've heard me say before, you win with juniors and seniors. And those teams that come back with a pretty good senior, junior, latent team are the ones that do pretty good. And Indiana was that way a year ago. So again, we're going to get to that as well as we go through the next 4-part series. And also, if you have a feeling on Indiana's schedule, by all means, don't forget to drop something in the chat box or leave a comment for me on YouTube. I try to answer those as much as I possibly can. What is your thoughts? Does Indiana cruise to a 3-0 start, or which of those three games in the non-conference gives you pause for concern? You got your opinions, and I would love to hear that. But this is season 4, truly going to be one of our best yet. And again, as Sig says, fast, physical, relentless is how you win games. And we're going to get there right now and jump over to this North Texas team and look at it a little bit broader at first when you talk about North Texas. But we'll look at it again, Indiana's overall schedule. There you have it. Again, first 3 games is our focus tonight. But as you can see there, Indiana has a very good opportunity to be in a position heading into Nebraska of being 5-0 again, going into a tough environment on the road, and then coming back October 17th against the Ohio State Buckeyes, which will be probably one of the best games to hit Bloomington in over a decade plus, I guess you could say. It's crazy how that we get there. Justin, appreciate it as well. You're wishing happy birthday. Appreciate that. But as you can see here, Indiana, 3 straight home games, one on each of the networks, Fox, Big Ten Network, and Peacock. But when you look at this North Texas team, as I said before, they do have a new coach in Neil Brown. The offensive coordinator has been with him a while is Tyler Allen, and Matt Powledge is their defensive coordinator. And these all have ties to Coach Brown out of the American Conference now with North Texas. 12-2 a year ago, 7-1 in overall. They had a phenomenal team a year ago, an excellent quarterback who is now at Okie State. And they put a lot of points on the board offensively like Indiana did. And North Texas is down in Denton, Texas, which is a Dallas suburb, I guess you could say. They got a couple guys that are coming back. Tisdale, Carter, and Thomas all have things to offer this North Texas team. And it's a very young ball club in the sense of how many years they've been actively back in playing football there at North Texas. I always get a chuckle because there was a movie out with Scott Bakula that came out many years ago, and they were known as the Mean Green in that respect. So that is where I get a chuckle sometimes because Scott Bakula was a quarterback who came back with eligibility. He was like 30 years old. It was just a good old football movie. So every time I hear North Texas, I think the Mean Green from that movie in that respect. But again, 12-2 overall, 7-1 in the ACC. Neil Brown, again, he was at West Virginia 2 years ago. Things didn't work out there for him, although he did have some decent teams. They just can never get over the hump with what they try to accomplish there. And, Coach Brown is a guy that invests in a identity. They like to be a physical team, but they are also that one back, no huddle spread team. But don't let that fool you because they will want to run the football. And again, they've done some things via the portal and things of that nature to make up the roster because of the number of guys that left for Okie State. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but again, it was a pretty big group of guys that went with their former head coach there up to Okie State. And again, when you play a team like this that you don't have any idea what they may run, not run, coaches are going back. They're taking their film from West Virginia, also from when Coach Brown was at Troy, where he had a very successful career that led him to West Virginia. And they're taking those games that they're able to get, and they've already broken them down to get an idea what they like to do on either side of the football, especially with the coordinators. Sometimes coordinators, maybe are not with them, Coach Brown at one stop, but they come back and you got to find out what they like to run and things. And then you've got to do an assessment of their roster. And all those things happen in the summer. There's a lot of game planning, or what we call a pre-game planning, that goes on, especially in your non-conference schedule, all throughout the summer, starting in about May up until you head out for vacation. And that really ends it because you're into the season then. But a lot of that takes place right now. And a team like North Texas, 12-2 a year ago, a team that won and had success. Again, you're gonna expect a team that wants to be physical. They're gonna have that run first identity and try to find explosive plays. They're gonna, spread you out and try to find where you maybe are weak. First game for Indiana on defense without the productivity that they lost with graduation. No D'Angelo Pons, no Aiden Fisher and Stephen Daly. We can go right down the list. But if you listen to me this morning, there was one group of position groups that I'm really excited about this year. That is the defensive line that Indiana has assembled, because they have at least 8 that they can roll out there and play all year long. And I don't think you'll see a drop at all between their first and second unit. But again, this is a team that can present problems, kind of like Old Dominion did in that first game. Remember the first play of the game, which 80 yards out the gate on basically a read zone play. Indiana overplayed it, was too aggressive, and the quarterback at Old Dominion, who's now at Wisconsin, took it 88 out the gate. And that's one thing that you have to be aware of with a team like North Texas. First game of the year, uncertain a little bit. You got to play it close to the vest. But you got to feel Indiana, talent-wise, should be in a good spot where they're at with this group when it comes to their ability against the squad like North Texas. So again, a good non-conference game. I know sometimes people rag on Indiana for playing a group of 5 team, and so forth. Well, the 2 teams that Indiana playing were both good G5 schools that had excellent records and played in bowl games. So you really can't sit here and criticize too much when you've got 2 teams coming in that are pretty darn good when you think about it. The next one coming in is Howard, a HBU school out in the Buffs coming in. New coaching staff there as well when you bring these guys in. And 5-7 a year ago, 2-3 all overall in the Mecca. I think that's how you pronounce the MEC. I'm almost positive. But Ted White is a former player there, quarterback at Howard, so there's a legacy there with them as well. They're a team that will always have talent. These HBU teams always have talent. And again, they're looking for that example where they can find an opportunity to catch somebody by surprise. And if, again, they can, catch Indiana sleeping because they think they're 10 times better than them, who knows what can happen. But right now, there's some uncertainty with their roster in terms of like quarterback position. Eden James is the son of Edgerrin James, as what people in Indiana know from the Colts. So you know that he's going to be a very good running back. He's dynamic in what he can do, just like his dad was. Great vision, patience, all those things. Got an experienced cornerback in Marcus Harris. And then up top with the coordinators, Anthony Phillips and Jarrett. Again, these are some guys that Coach White has worked with in the past. And Coach White does have some professional playing experience under his belt. He played in the Canadian League. So he does have some of that with him, but he was a former All-American there at Howard. But again, Indiana should be in very good position where they're at with their talent compared to Howard. And this is a game, again, I say it all the time. You don't want to give a team like this any hope. Just same thing like North Texas, but they're a tradition-rich school. Again, they're going to try to establish things for themselves, and one of them is to gain an identity. And when you have a new coaching staff, especially at a school that hasn't won all that much, again, these are things that you're more concerned with when you play in Indiana, is doing the right things and help start forging a identity as a football team and getting your kids to play hard, whistle to whistle. So, but Indiana, look, they should dominate the line of scrimmage in this game. They should be able to get some guys into this game, build some depth, especially with their Indiana's offensive line. The spot that I do have great concern this year with Indiana is their depth at O-line. They only have 13 bodies there. In a normal depth chart situation, you would try to have at least 3 deep and then maybe carry 18 to 20 on your roster. But Indiana only has 13, and there's a drop from that first unit that's going to trot out there on the field and their second unit. You know, last year, Ajani was a big help with all the injuries Indiana had, and he was able to step in and play great football. And Coach Bostad, we know what he can do. He'll have those guys ready. But this is a game that Indiana should be able to get a lot of guys some opportunities to play against Howard in this second non-conference game. And again, Indiana should be in a great position to head into that third game of the season 3-0 when they take on Western Kentucky. But again, the biggest thing for Indiana will be, with a new quarterback, is to establish consistency, effectiveness as an offense with Josh Hoover, just like they did with Fernando. And Fernando, let's face it, wasn't perfect those first couple games with Indiana. He hit his stride that first game they played against Illinois, where Indiana just throttled the Illini. But he did struggle a little bit against Old Dominion. And of course, I don't really count Indiana State to a degree. And so this is a chance to really get Josh Hoover comfortable again in game-like situations, as well as get your backup quarterback in to get some really good reps in a game-like situation, trying to get guys opportunities for playing time and such. So again, Howard, new coaching staff. So the first 2 weeks, they're going to face new head coaches, new coordinators, and teams that may have some identity issues in terms of who they got, because maybe they lost some guys and stuff. So again, this one would be a game too that should be an interesting ball game, especially some of the guys are going to be running around for Howard, because like I said, HBU schools, a lot of tradition. They've put a lot of guys in the league over the years. Not that Howard is one of those overly tradition-rich football school, but again, an HBCU is always going to have that tradition and such. See if I missed any questions. Good to see you here, Brian, as well. Tyler, appreciate your comments there on the graphics. Try to do my best. AI is a beautiful thing. As right, and Robert has something to say as well. This is a good one. I say it as well. Talking season is almost over. And that is very true. Once the media days have hit the end button, the talking season's over. It's time to go play and prove yourself on the field in that respect. So big one there. Now we head into the third game of the year. We're talking Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers, a team that boy, in some games that they've played Indiana against, previous staffs, they've given Indiana a scare or two. And Indiana's needed all 4 quarters in those games to get it a victory. So again, not a game that you can think is automatically chalk it up, because Western Kentucky is another team that you have to be very leery of. And they're another Group 5, Conference USA, 9-4, 6-2, tied for second in Conference USA. Tyson Helton is the head coach there and has done a great job of putting Western Kentucky into a consistent year in, year out contender. That is something that is ultimately an acknowledgement to him and what he's done at Western Kentucky in that respect. But again, Indiana, as it was brought up, I think, Brian, you had to bring it up. Peacock is going to be the channel of choice. And again, you're going to have to jump in to some of that with it. But as you can see, after the Northwestern game, it's all to be determined after that, because then they're going to start positioning themselves. But Big Noon will be here for the North Texas game on the 5th. And that will be another thing that will be a unique, is having the Big Noon crew on campus for game 1 in that aspect of things. Airplane, IU fan, and let's see here, I'll put it up here. I consider myself an IU fan, and that schedule is embarrassingly weak. Well, I don't necessarily agree that it's embarrassingly weak. Again, this is a debate that you're going to have every single year with Power 4 schools. I can bet you that if you looked at a lot of schedules, with maybe the exception of Ohio State playing Texas again this year, you're going to find similar schedules in that respect. But when you talk about North Texas and Western Kentucky, 2 teams that had winning records and went to bowl games a year ago, those are the type of teams that give P4 schools a little bit of a scare, because those are the type of schools that go in week 1 and knock somebody off. And, but I don't sit here and say, hey, you're totally wrong on this. I understand the aspect of perception and how that is reality. But I also think that who they're playing, with it being Conference USA school and a American Conference school, who are 2 schools that went to bowls and had great records a year ago, those are pretty good, darn good schools to go up against. But I get it. I understand it. And I wouldn't sit here and say you're totally wrong in your assessment there. But it is what it is when you come to these non-conference games, and it's not going to change for years to come. Potentially, maybe when we start talking potential crossover games, which I know that is on the table for discussion with the SEC, Big 12, ACC, and such. We'll see. I hope that does happen. But getting back to Western Kentucky, again, another great another home game for Indiana, who have, worked the schedule in their favor for the last 3 years. And they've done a great job of doing that, because they don't hit the road until Rutgers, I believe, if memory serves me correct there. But Tisdale, their quarterback's really good. He's only a sophomore. Taylor, the running wide receiver, another guy that's got some decent speed. And then you got Bassett at linebacker. And again, a good staff, 9-4 overall, got experience on both sides of the ball. Helton's one of those guys that, wants to be a balanced offense. And when I say balance, you're talking 40-60 in the run pass ratio. They do take advantage of tempo. They do take advantage of RPOs like any offense in today's game. And they also rebuild through the portal. And they're going to get some good bodies out of the portal. And these are the type of schools that are going to have guys leave them because they have great years. And a P4 school comes along with more money, and those guys are going to jump ship. So it's just kind of the standard operating procedures there. But again, they will be picked high in Conference USA again this year, if not to win it again. But one side of the ball is that they're going to have to improve upon is defense. That's one side that I see them having to really get back to being better there than they were a year ago. And that's where some of their portal guys came from. So again, that first 3 games of the year, again, I don't think you sit here and say, look, they're in jeopardy in any of those games. They will be heavy favorites in all of them. Western Kentucky, for that matter, is, they have a winning culture. They've had success with recruiting the portal. They've had, they're a veteran coaching staff, and they've got some good players. And they're also a team offensively that has some explosives in their repertoire. And I say that because when you think about when Indiana, I think it was under Allen, they went down to Western Kentucky. I can't remember what year it was, but they struggled in that game down there. And then I know they played Western Kentucky at home one year under Kevin Wilson, and that was a tough game. So again, this is a team that can give you pause for concern, because you're going to get a pretty darn good football team coming in to Memorial Stadium that third week of the year. But then again, Indiana should be a heavy favorite on all 3 of them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that they should come out of those 3 games at 3-0. And that's not to, lie shade anywhere on any of those teams. But if you look at it from the black and white of it, Indiana should have a better overall team than any of those 3 that they'll face in that week of competition, those 3 games. So I'm going to step aside, take a quick break here real quick. And when we come back, we're going to jump into the film room. I'm going to show you the inside zone running play that Indiana likes to hang their hat on. Talk about that a little bit and more here on the kickoff to season 4 of Hoosier Tailgate. We're back right after this.
Indiana football fans, get your officially licensed Indiana gear today at the Hoosier Tailgate Fanatics storefront. Jerseys, hoodies, hats, collectibles, tailgate gear, and championship apparel, all in one place. Look for the link in the description to the Hoosier Tailgate storefront and gear up today.
Welcome back here to Hoosier Tailgate here on the Hoosier.com. Thank you for joining us here this evening, wherever you may be joining us from. Could be Facebook, could be YouTube, but do appreciate you being here with us tonight as we kick off the season 4 of Hoosier Tailgate, and looking forward to this year. We just kind of finished up with the first part of our series of the 2026 schedule and talked about North Texas, Howard, and Western Kentucky. And again, I don't think there's any question that Indiana should feel pretty good heading into this year and coming out of those games 3-0 and have a realistic shot of being 5-0 before they head to North Texas after they play Northwestern at home, but they do go to Rutgers, and Rutgers is not an easy place to go play at. And Coach Tiano's a really good coach. So that will be another one. That will be a darn good one. And don't forget, Chip Kelly is the offensive coordinator at Northwestern. He's back in the league after leading Ohio State to a national championship 2 years ago. And he's back with Northwestern. So, he brings some legitimacy offensively because he's a good offensive coach. One thing I did want to get to tonight to show is this thing with Indiana and running inside zone concepts. Sometimes when you look at it, what does inside zone means? In this example here, you're going to have guys working and getting double teams at the point of attack and then getting guys to the second level. And usually it'll involve a read concept where the quarterback will have the option of reading the in-man on line, which would be that guy there, or they could couple a run pass option with it. But Indiana did this very well a year ago. And if you look at this, Indiana does a great job of getting up to the next level with their offensive line and getting the double teams. And then the running backs here have to make the offensive linemen right with their patience. And this is a great cut by Hemby. He's cutting this thing from a front side A gap all the way back to the C gap and having to take on the safety there. So again, a very nice play with the inside zone. Here's another one that Indiana did a lot with, was what we call this tight end off. And usually when they do this, if they bring him in motion, they're bringing him in motion to come back here to block off the edge, if that's the case. But let's see what they do here with that. And again, I think this is Hemby. This time they've run it to the left, so Nowakowski is responsible for the fourth man here. And again, good hard run there on a 1st and 10, gaining 8 yards. And that's what I mean, having something to hang your hat on and being in a position to run the ball with effectiveness. So this one, same thing again. You got 4 eyes here over the tackles. And again, these guys are going to be working together and putting in a position to get push at the point of attack. And Hemby does a great job of finding the seam and hitting it. And like I said, making them right. That's a good job by the left side here between Carter Smith and the left guard. And then, of course, the right guard and right in the center do a great job. And boom. Like to send Coogan get up to that backer quicker, but you always want to make sure you secure the down man first. Here they switch it up a little bit. They put the tight end on the ball, and they're bringing Charlie in motion. And he's a guy that could come in motion and be responsible for off the edge. There's a lot of different things they can do with him there, as I screwed up the drawing there. But here's a game at Penn State where Indiana, quite honestly, didn't run the ball great against Penn State because Penn State had a really good offense or defense. Now here you're looking at inside zone with kind of a lead blocker, getting a little wider than it normally does, but great job by Charlie being inside out and a good job at the point of attack. And Hemby, again, gets 8 yards right out of the gate. So again, you look at this, they're coming to our left, and you're going to get kind of double team here, double teams in here, and really getting themselves in a position to get pretty good push. And they do a good job on this one. But this was a tough sledding day for Indiana from a run game standpoint. Like I said, Charlie does a great job. And look at this. This is great vision by Hemby. I mean, there's not a lot of seams there, but he waits patiently and finds one right off of Charlie's block and gets 8 yards on a gain. So again, very good on that aspect of things. Now we're in the red zone. Now, the thing that Indiana would like to do a lot over the years is they would tag a RPO where they could, do something where they're bringing a guy out, running an out cut, taking the guy on the outside and running him off, doing type of things and letting the quarterback just decide what he wants to go to here or hand it off. And here's one where he's going to read the guy coming off the edge. And he theoretically could have thrown this one because they're running routes at the top. They're running a fade by Coop and a hitch on the outside. And Fernando decided to give it. Probably could have pulled it there, but again, a nice run by Hemby, not letting an arm tackle bring you down and getting 7 yards on the play. So very good in that respect. So again, inside zone where you're working, you got guys working together and right there. And then of course he's got the guy that's sitting out here coming off the edge as the read guy. In Indiana, again, 7 yards, first down type of play. Good job by right tackle here on the slant. Nowakowski does a great job. Look how square he is. When you block square like that, that's going to give the running back a two-way go because he's not favoring a side, and the back could either hit it there or hit it there. Because Nowakowski's block is square. And he decides to do it. And again, not letting an arm tackle bring you down. We'll take one more here. And again, Indiana does a lot of stuff with their formations to cover up plays and how they want to do it. This time they go to more of a bunch. Look. So now, again, bringing Nowakowski back. So this is going to be more of a true handoff because there's no read guy because they're blocking him. And again, a nice hard run. And I think this is Kalon. He ran the ball so hard last year. He'll be tough to replace just because, that kid played with great passion. Another, getting the double teams at the point of attack. Carter Smith's not great here technique-wise. Good job by Coogan, and does a good job of getting to that backer right there. Good job by Charlie coming in there and digging out that backer. It makes a difference because you get that extra yardage on the play. So again, this is one of those plays that Indiana ran a lot last year, coupled it with the RPO. Very successful, very efficient in how they did it. And I guarantee it, they're going to do it again this year. And they'll have Hoover up to speed. You may see Hoover be a little more athletic in the sense of maybe pulling it and running it more than we've seen in the past. If that becomes a factor, Fernando did a pretty decent job of that last year when the opportunity presented itself. But mostly what Indiana likes to do, run it and couple it with an RPO. So the quarterback isn't taking any unnecessary hits in that respect. So again, you can see where this play has been very, very good to Indiana, and it's going to be another one that they're going to hang their hat on in 2026. Next week, we'll talk more about this part 2 in the series. We'll cover the first couple games of the Big Ten schedule that Indiana will be facing right off the bat. Northwestern, Rutgers, and I believe Nebraska. And you can bet Nebraska has that game circled because the last time Indiana played Nebraska, they got embarrassed. And I guarantee you they are still remembering that to this day. See if there's any more questions in here before we say goodbye. 51 days, Brian. That's good. Correct. 7 weeks. Thank you there for the birthday wishes again. I appreciate that. And everything else that everybody has contributed tonight. Appreciate all that. Catch me tomorrow morning on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We'll be talking with Alec Lasley, Zach Osterman, and Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Of course, we'll get the updates on the Hoosiers' win over Team Canada last night and get the perspective from Alec and Zach, as well as some other items of importance with Big Ten Media Days. But again, appreciate each and every one of you joining us here tonight for the kickoff of the Season 4 of Hoosier Football Tailgate. Remember, tomorrow at noon on Pat McAfee, Moshan Sells will be making his decision between what is believed to be Indiana and Texas, or if it comes out of left field, LSU or Ohio State. You never say never. But again, appreciate everyone being here tonight. We'll catch you next Thursday for more Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on thehoosier.com. Good night, everybody.